Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Hilltop Pillbox here in Abbotsford, British Columbia, Canada, and our YouTube game of Axis and Allies Global 1940 has come to a close. The Axis have decided it's just not going to work for them, and the big battle was here, and the big battle that never was, I guess. The Germans just figured out that with all these problems growing on the west and of course in the north, and let's not forget the south, and this was at about 43%, I think, of a victory for them, because the Allies were able to pump in 8 fighters in the last round. And even if the Germans won, which was, as we say, probably unlikely, they were in a pretty bad way. And Russia's not going to be giving them much money, and Germany's money, as you can see here, is down to $32. So they're not swimming in cash either. So just really good team effort on the Allies. I got to tell you, we spent many hours sending emails back and forth about different strategies that we would like to try, and neat little ideas. And I think one of the keys, well, I know that one of the keys to our success was just the great communication between the China-America, run by Dutch Lancaster, and myself on this side of the board, and taking some great advice from Mr. John and also from Sam Kenny, who were playing UK Pacific and the Russia respectively. And we were able to keep Japan at bay. Obviously Japan's going to steamroll, but we've been able to keep the large bulk of the Japanese ground forces away from Calcutta, which allowed me to, as you can see, just kind of be a real pain in the butt here. So we forced Japan to keep retaking territory instead of taking new territory every turn. And when Japan is stuck doing that, and with the US now pouring a lot of its money into the Pacific, I think 2 turns in a row put everything into the Pacific, Japan just can't match all of that. If you haven't seen any of the videos, you just click on my last few, and it'll tell the tale of 5 turns of this game. A lot of fun, and I know that right now Hunter Jones is setting up a league to do this sort of thing. So contact Hunter Jones, just like it sounds, Hunter Jones, on YouTube, and check it out. He's going to be setting up a league to do this, and you'll just be head-to-head with people. I think he's looking for a couple dozen players. I think he's better than halfway there now, so depending on when you watch this video, if you're watching this in 2024, you might be a little late. But they might be still running it. I think it's a great way to play, especially if you live in a remote area. A lot of people, you live out in the bush and you can't, just grab 5 friends to come have a great game. But this is a way to do it. And I think the greatest thing about this is the collaboration and the ability to talk to people, to get different ideas. Maybe somebody will see something you didn't see, which happens to me all the time, because I get sometimes I get a little bit of tunnel vision, and I believe that my way is the best way. Maybe not the only way, but I can see all the good things that can happen. But somebody else can see what might happen a couple turns down the road, or maybe I'll be pulled out of position or something. And really good to hear that other view, the other side. The great thing about this game, I can't speak for the Axis, but for the Allies, for the 3 gentlemen I mentioned, we all put in our 2 cents, but we never ever forced anybody to do something or said, you have to do this or else we lose the game. We never ever took that tone. It was always, here's something you might not have considered, and here's something you might not, and you know what, if I do this, and you'll be able to do that. And it was really a fantastic way to play a game. So, enough about that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pause, and I'm going to set up the Axis and Allies Anniversary Edition. And Jay Hoffmayer has sent me a new exciting setup. So I'm going to put that up here, and you'll see it in just a moment. So we will bid adieu to Global 1940, and in a few moments you will see the Anniversary Edition with a very interesting setup. Okay, as promised, here is the setup for a Cold War style game, and this is by Jay Hoffmayer, and I think this might be the first video of it online, but he may correct me. Jay, go ahead and mention it in the comments below if you got another one up there somewhere. So he just sent me this setup. I haven't played the game yet, and I'm just going to run through a few things, a few details about it with you. So as you can see, Canada has its own economy, and you'll notice that Newfoundland and Labrador is no longer a British colony, as it joined Canada in 1949. And then you have, of course, America. And then here in the Caribbean, we have a communist presence, Central America and the West Indies. And there's also a minor factory, so they'll be able to possibly crank some units out before it gets conquered. So, could be interesting. You'll notice an orange fellow here in Suriname. That's one of the Dutch fellow, because if you ain't Dutch, you ain't much, right? And here's the Dutch, and they have a good presence in Holland. And you'll notice that this is a very multinational game when we look at the territories. So if you look at Britain, there are 4 different nationalities in there. You got British, American, French, and Dutch. And of course, Canadians could show up if need be, or the Germans could head over there, because the Germans are, of course, allies now. And that's one of the things you'd have to really get your head around, is that being a Cold War game, it's East versus West. It's not so much the Axis and the Allies. Italy, I'm using a light green color for them, and they are significantly reduced from the your typical war setup, because of course the Italian Navy and Air Force and pretty much their entire armed forces were eliminated during and or shortly after the war. Didn't have much left after that. Britain still holds on to some of its typical territories like Gibraltar and Malta and a little bit North Africa, but the Middle East has transformed here into a bastion of communism. And yeah, there's some stuff going on there, where that we know that Russia was trying to take over the Suez Canal and backed Egypt, and you had the big Suez crisis back in the mid-50s. Britain and France tried to take it, failed miserably, and just, yeah, it's crazy. And did it with Russian equipment. They were able to save this area, the Egyptians were. So they have quite the presence down here, and as well a factory. And a fairly large fleet in the Black Sea. And lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of stuff here in Russia. But it's fairly balanced with what's facing them. Okay. Now the plus for Russia is that they're one nation, and they're facing multinational forces. So while in the attack, the Russians would be facing some pretty strong defensive positions, the NATO, if you want to call them that, it's a little early for it, but the West, they can only attack piecemeal, so there's that. Over here in India, they of course, Japan's empire has crumbled, and so France is back in French Indochina, as well as an American contingent. This is just pre the fall of Dien Bien Phu, by having France getting basically kicked out shortly after that. China, I'm using, if you'll notice, brown. So this is the Italians, but I'm using them for Chinese because they have quite a bit of stuff. And I didn't have another army that could do everything it needed to do. And we got a decent Soviet contingent up here in the northeast. In fact, we still have Soviets in Korea as well. Okay. Japan does have some stuff, but of course it is also being helped out by their new friends, the Americans. And so as we look at some of the islands, we'll notice that Americans and the Japanese share a lot of the space. China has a moderately nice fleet here. Certainly can't go up against this on its own, so it'd be an interesting opening move. And also down here in what we call the Money Islands, the Dutch again are free. They're out from under the yoke of Japanese oppression, and now have a factory down here, and are going to be cranking things out in these little areas. Anzac is Anzac. Been able to hold on to some of the World War II construction, and so it has some pretty nice stuff here, but it is pretty much within its own borders, save the one infantry here in Malaya. Americans, of course, their influence spread greatly after World War II. A lot of us, you think of America, and it is the #1 exporter of culture, and you really would be hard pressed to go to any city of 50,000 people or more anywhere on the planet and not find some trace of American consumer good or culture. And I think that's a testament to the ability of America to kind of get everything out there, and that they make things attractive for people that they want to buy, right? So people go and buy all the American goods, and American culture gets transplanted that way. So we see that here is that prior to World War II, very isolationist. Not much of America was spreading overseas. The big players were still the British, the French, the Germans, and that they were the ones that everybody knew, and they knew all the stuff, and had a lot of their equipment and their resources and whatnot. But as World War II went on, most of Britain and France and Germany, they were just trying to survive by the end of it, and they were pretty broke, whereas America just exploded because they, save for Pearl Harbor, which really wasn't American land at the time, save for Pearl Harbor, nothing in the States really got hit. The couple of Aleutian Islands got taken, but seriously, they never had to unbomb their cities, they never had to rebuild or anything. So after World War II, tons and tons and tons of material, and tons of trained troops and all the rest, and big push by America. So you can see that all these islands that used to be Japanese are now American, as well as a lot more troops and equipment out here. And again, not a bunch of natural predators, because the only people that could come at them would be the small Chinese fleet and a small Russian, very small Russian fleet over there, a cruiser and a sub. So the Pacific historically was very, very much a western lake, and not so much in the Atlantic. Sorry for the Cold War history lesson here, but I didn't want to get too much into it, but it looks like I am. So what Jay has been attempting to do is give you that whole east-west feel, and I think he's done a good job of it with the setup. And this part here especially, many people watching this video, there'd be very, very few people who were alive during the Cuban Missile Crisis. I wasn't. That predates my birth. And the Suez Crisis really predates my birth, and probably 95% of the people watching this video. So when you do the setup for this, and you take a look at it, and it's not a completed thing, I don't think. I think there might be a little tweaking here and there. I'm going to be talking to Jay later today, and there might be some minor changes here and there, but for the most part, I think you'll see these build-ups. Then what you can do is you can go ahead and just Google or open up a Cold War textbook or something and try to figure out, why the French went back to French Indochina in force. Why would they do that, after, the disaster that World War II was for them? And why did they hold on so tenaciously to their African colonies? Like, why was that so important to them? And I think you can learn a lot of neat stuff. In case you're wondering, the gold guys here, this is just Switzerland. I like putting them onto the map just to have fun. It's a strict neutral. You're not going to go in there. And the plane and the men are opposite. It should be just one plane and 21 men, but pretty much nobody's going to invade that. You're not going to get really any money out of it. So just the idea that Switzerland is fairly hands-off. But there you go. The Italians, they lost their empire in Africa, completely gone. Like I said, they're fairly neutered over here. That's pretty much it. Now you see some in Moscow. I'm just going to zoom in over here. You see the nuclear bomb symbol there. It's actually a nuclear missile, and Americans have their versions. Where is it? There it is. Over there. They've got a nuclear bomb in Eastern, and they also have another one over in California there. Those things are things I got from historical board gaming. So I'm just going to go through and show you some of the things that would possibly be in use in this game. So of course we can start with the mushroom clouds. If you've seen my playtests of historical board gaming's Meltdown 2025, the mushroom clouds are used. You can use the mushroom clouds from Supremacy if you're lucky enough to have a copy of that old classic. I've got a couple, so they have black mushroom clouds though. This is something from historical board gaming. It's just a missile being launched. So it's a really neat little sculpt. I'm going to try to, hard to see it really well, but basically it looks like a Minuteman silo, but you know, anybody could have those when you launch. Again, there's the bomb token that I use just to show that there's missiles there. You could use this as an explosion. These are all, again, purchasable at Historical Board Gaming, and I highly recommend picking them up because they really do add a lot of flavor to your games. And I know some people even play Global 40 with some rules that allow for nukes, and having a few of these or some of these just really add to the game. Here's a China marker, which I put one in Kwang Tung just to remind us that that is a Chinese place. Now again, people are arguing, hey, 1897, the Chinese gave that over to the British. And yes, that's correct. But in the setup here, it's just going to be a Chinese place. Again, Jay might change that, who knows. It might have been a gameplay decision just because it's a little easier to do it this way. And remember folks, you can have an extremely historically accurate game, but your game playability is going to be very low. Or you could have a really high game playability game, lots of fun, beer and pretzels, but the historicity is going to be very, very low. Right? It won't be accurate. Because let's face it folks, most wars are won or lost because of political will, not because of the stuff that's on the ground. Or in the air, or in the boats, right? There's very little discussion needs to be said about that. That's pretty much what it is. If people have the great material but not the will to use it, you're going to lose. And if you don't have the generalship to use it properly, you know, Poland's military strength was almost equal to Germany's on September 1st, as far as numbers go, but the quality of the generalship and one of the big differences was aircraft. But I don't know if you know this, but the Germans lost about a third of their air power and about half their tanks in the assault on Poland. And you know, Hitler wanted to go take France right away, but he couldn't because his general said, we don't have any more equipment left, we'd lose. So that's why he had to wait until the following spring to attack France. And so if we put things that are actually the way they were historically, and the numbers of things historically, everybody around a games table has the political will to use it, right? We all just, let's just crash, right? So if you made it, you know, we want to make it historically accurate, but then we're going to unleash the hounds, as it were, and just let you do what you want with it, there's a really good chance that Russia would win this. It would be no contest. Like the amount of men and material that the Soviets had access to in the mid-1950s far surpassed what the Western Allies were able to bring. Plus, Western Allies had tons of problems because of all the different equipment they used, the different languages that were used, and they built different equipment based on their terrain or their needs in the air or their needs in the water, whereas the Soviet Union built what it needed to do war. And so it would have been a pretty quick fight, especially because there wouldn't be the political will to drop a nuke on Paris in order to stop the Russians. It just wouldn't happen. So, pardon my assumption, but I really don't think it would happen. If I get some arguments in the comments below, that's fine. But I really highly doubt that Eisenhower or whoever in the mid 50s would say, "Yeah, let's nuke Paris to stop the Russians." I don't think that would happen. Anyway, I got a little off track there. Sorry, social studies teacher, and we're gearing up for the new school year. Starts in about a week and a couple days, and so yeah, I'm going to be teaching 20th century history for my classes. So yeah, I'm getting into it already. All right, you poor people. The last token I'm going to show here is this one here. I really like this token. It's just a very simple spy token. Got the kind of Boris and Natasha kind of look to it. And this is not in Jay's game yet. It might be someday. It might be an expansion or some sort of a special unit you can purchase. But spies were, that's the reason the war was cold, is because it was all espionage. Very little shooting. There were hot spots around, and he talks about that in the rule setup. There's proxy wars that go on where the Soviets, pardon me, can say, I'm gonna put some units in here, and then the West says, well, we have to respond. They build up. When you get to a certain number of units, then there will be a war that goes on, and whoever wins that war will then take that territory and take any economy. So of course Afghanistan has no economy, but it is easy access east or to north-south here between these two powers. Or maybe you want Iraq, or maybe you want Brazil, or whatever. So all of these little proxy wars that go on are a very interesting part of the game. Look forward to seeing how that plays out. But back to the spies. Again, it's Jay's game. I've used spies before in some of my games, and again, you can get this at HVG. So if I were, say, the Chinese and I wanted to spy on India, I would just take my spy marker there and put it on Chinese. There's a bunch of different rules that you can use for these. For me, the spy, I like having it just stay there as long as it could possibly stay there until it's caught. And every turn that it stays there, you can steal money. It's that simple. So the person who has the spy rolls, and they get a +1 for the initiative of having the spy there. And then the defender rolls. Whoever gets the higher roll, decisions are made. So if the spy gets higher roll, so let's say the spy with the +1 bonus rolls a 4, so rolled a 3, got +1 for the 4, and the defender rolls a 2. Well, there's two difference there. The spy steals $2 and is not discovered. And so the next turn that China has, the spy will once again try to steal from the Indian government here. And once again you roll. And if there's so many rules for this, and we've tried a few. The rule I like is that if you match, as the defender, if you match his number, so if he rolls a 3, +1 is a 4, and if I roll a 4 and I match it, then I turn the spy, I take the spy, and I turn him into a double agent. And so now he's my spy, and now I can use him to go spy on a different place and use him as mine. If I defeat his number, though, he's eliminated from the game. Okay, so you're looking for the tie. You really want the tie as the defender. So you can then turn him into a double agent and send him back. Just a fun little thing. It usually doesn't cause a lot of grief because the differences between the two rolls are rarely more than $2, maybe $3 that you're giving up, and it's really annoying. But you also know that when you do send it over there, you have a 1 in 6 chance of him coming back and spying on you. So just a neat little thing there, and it's very Cold War thematically. So that's pretty much it, folks. Again, this is Jay Hoffmeyer's baby. This is his brainchild. And again, I don't know a ton about it in that I don't have the play testing done yet, or just the gameplay done. And I hope I get some time to do that. But heading into a new school year as a school teacher and a coach, and I'm teaching 3 new classes in the first semester alone, I'm probably not going to have a lot of time to be rolling dice and learning new games, because I'm going to try to keep my job, which I'm very happy for. So, all right. Well, thanks so much for watching, everybody. And yeah, if you have any comments you'd like to add to this, or maybe some ideas about what could spice things up a little bit in an expansion thought, you can do that. Again, the nukes and such, I'm not going to get totally into that, how they fire. They're very expensive and they are destructive, but that's still in development, still in conversation, and so I don't want to say what all the rules are on it, because those might change, and then this video would lead you astray and not educate you, which is very anti-teacher. But if you have any ideas about things, yeah, go ahead and put your thoughts in here. I did talk about the proxy wars, where countries can try to build up in certain spots and have a war, East versus West, remember, and you know, try to take over places that way. All right, I think that's pretty much it, and I don't think I want to bore you anymore. And some of you might be thinking, oh, I don't have that many different colored pieces. Hey, one of my previous videos, I just showed you I used to have, you know, a bunch of just old Axis and Allies pieces, and then I just painted them. And I'm going to come over here, sorry if I'm making you sick, and so you guys can see all these just old Axis and Allies pieces, many of them just old ones, and you just throw a little bit of paint on them, and that will that can make up your different countries. Okay, but he doesn't have any units that you wouldn't have from a Global 40 game. So the only thing that might be is anything to do with the nukes. Everything else, the ships and everything, all double quite well. So he's done a good job with that you don't need to go spend a bunch of money on new units. All right, now I'm really going to say goodbye. So thanks so much for watching. Take care. Don't forget to hug your loved ones. And hey, may those dice be ever with you.